Welcome to day 275. Mark 3, 6, 5, and 6. Lots of little tidbits to go through. So you have your miracles list, so let's add to those things. Let's go through this kind of quickly. He healed many people. So now we start to see that this is going on, and it's like, okay, we had vast amounts of people coming in, and he healed people, and they touched him, and stuff left his body. Healing power left his body and healed people. So just the people that would touch him would get healed. So you just don't have any idea how many people this was happening to. So let's take a quick look at this. At Mark 3, 10 and 11, he had healed many people that day. So all the sick people eagerly pushed forward to touch him. And whenever those possessed by evil spirits caught sight of him, the spirits would throw them to the ground in front of him, shrieking, "You are the Son of God." So you have tons of people just pressing in on him all the time, getting healed. And not only that, but here's the important part about this, is that the evil spirits, he didn't even have to say anything. That's how scared they are of Jesus. And they're trembling with fear of what's going on. And they know what's happening. So they understand that even in the spirit world, Christ he's got authority, okay? And this scares them, and they just don't want to be around him. They're like, leave us alone, you know? So if we look at Luke 6, 18, we also have something about that. It says, they had come to hear him and be healed of their diseases, and those troubled by evil spirits were healed. Okay, everyone tried to touch him because healing power went out from him and healed everyone. Everyone who touched him, along with all the ones he wanted to touch. All right, so then we have the disciples list, and you probably, if you've been paying attention, were a little confused by certain things. So I'll just point out that. You can look up the 12 names. Just a few things on here. So Simon was then named Peter, and you have Nathaniel, who we talked about before. Well, his name is actually Bartholomew. So he goes by both Bartholomew or Nathaniel. And you should have friends that have different names. So don't let that throw you off. And you have Levi, who is named Matthew. And then you have James, not the one James, but another James, who is the son of Alphaeus. And then you have Thaddeus, who is Judas, son of James. So there are different names for a few of these guys. More than one name for a few of these guys. But the most important ones are I don't want to say most important. I mean, you have Peter, who does an immense amount. You have James, and you have John, you have Matthew. Obviously, we spent a lot of time in Matthew, and then Judas Iscariot, obviously, who betrayed Jesus. So all these guys did crazy, wonderful, awesome things. But we have some that speak more than others and have had that history written down for them. Important to know who those names are so that you're not thrown off. Now, we are living in a time where we are being persecuted. We are being attacked and called names. And now in America, really, Christians aren't really persecuted. But there may be people that have died for Christ in America that hasn't been publicly shared yet. But across the world, that has been happening publicly, cutting off Christians' heads and Jews and the attack on Israel. So the persecution is ramping up. So let's look at what Jesus said. Matthew 5, 11 and 12. He says, God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad. And these are exclamation points. For a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. So when this starts to happen, as Americans, we don't like that. We don't like to be told things. We don't like to be called names. And it's just not right. Well, we're living in a time where I don't care what you say, how much logic or rational thinking you try to reach these people, they aren't rational. The sky is falling. The sky is not blue. Something that's just crazy. It's just backwards to them. Right is wrong and wrong is right and up is down. You cannot rationalize with them. And once they find out that you wave that American flag, they understand you're the conservative and you're the problem. So, and it's not just America. That's not that big a deal. Across the world, there's horrible, horrible persecution going on. And Jesus says, be happy and very glad because you have a great reward. So when this starts to happen, you need to recognize this and be like, okay, let's do it. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be suffering at all. It just means be happy about it. We are the light of the world. So this is 13 through 16. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You are the salt of the earth, but what good is salt if it's lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Okay, so I'm sharing both of these because the salt of the earth and the light of the world, those are always talked about. And I like to mention those verses when we read them. And here's the thing. We are the light of the world, not America, not Israel. The people who follow Christ are the light of the world, okay? And we are to go out and, by example, show what needs to be done. On that note, remember, you're not supposed to do it for reward. So at the end, I'm going to talk about that. But remember this. I mean, you got to be a light. You got to show what's right and what's wrong and to do good things. Help the poor. And don't do it in front of people. We'll come back to that. But do it in front of people, okay? Everyone sins. Now, it doesn't say this in these verses I'm going to read, but I want to just share. He goes on about all the different things that you can do that are wrong. Be careful of all these things. So I just picked out verse 25, chapter 5 in Matthew, and 22 and 28. And these are just a few of these things, okay? But I say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. And he goes on, and there's a whole bunch of lists of things that he warns about doing. Well, these are sinful things to do. And the thing is, you really need Christ because we all fall short. Okay, verse 28 says, but I say anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart, which is just about every man in the world. Not necessarily every man, but these are all about, we struggle with all this. It's a struggle. Okay, and then we talk about divorce in chapter 5, verse 31 and 32. You have heard the law that says a man can divorce his wife by merely giving her a written notice. But I say that a man who divorces his wife, unless she has been unfaithful, causes her to commit adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman also commits adultery. What's the point behind this? Even Christ is saying this is not a good thing. It is a one man, one woman relationship that we put together. It doesn't say one man and one woman in the Bible anywhere, but it is so extremely obvious that that is what God intended. I've had arguments with Christian people who say it doesn't say one man, one woman. You know, and these people have been married to the same person for their whole lives. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You are an example of it, and show me where it says it's okay to have more than one. Okay, because in the Old Testament, it was nothing but a disaster for anybody who had more than one wife. Okay, so let's talk about, let's go back, Matthew 5, 17 and 19. I thought this was really, really good to hear Jesus say this. Don't misunderstand why I have come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets. So those laws are still in place. We are to be doing those things. No, I came to accomplish their purpose. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not even the smallest detail of God's law will disappear. So you need to understand this. Remember, he wants a broken spirit. He wants your heart. He wants you to be merciful and compassionate. That's what the law really is all about, is make sure you understand there's only one God. Make sure you understand that there aren't any idol worshiping going on. Make sure you don't work on the Sabbath. But if you're doing good, that's okay. Make sure that you honor your parents. Make sure that you don't kill, you don't lie, you don't steal, you don't commit adultery. Make sure you don't covet things that you don't own, and it becomes a passion of yours to want something you can't have. Make sure that stuff doesn't happen. Those laws are there to help you understand oh, I've got these boundaries, and as long as I'm inside these boundaries, I can do great things. That's what it was, and that's what Jesus is saying. I came to fulfill the purpose of the law: compassion and mercy and forgiveness. I mean, that's what Jesus is. Okay? Hopefully that helps you. I want to read this part and then I'll talk. 44 and 45. But I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. In that way you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven, for he gives his sunlight to both evil and the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. Listen, we are on this planet, and yeah, evil is allowed to exist, and we are to fight that fight, but they still get the benefit of the sun and the rain and the crops that come up, and they still get the benefit of the good things. Why? Why? Okay? And I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about us before I talk about them. So in Matthew 5:48, but you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And you sit there and say, well, I can't be perfect. You just said everybody sins. How can we be perfect? First of all, you give your life to Christ, you're already perfect in God's sight, because you can't get to heaven unless you're perfect. And you become perfect because of what Christ did for you. Okay? So go and sin no more, meaning we are to strive to be the light of the earth, of the world. We are to be the salt. We are to become saltier, okay? To preserve. Salt preserves things. That's what we are here for. We are to strive to be that way. And if you find yourself doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, stop immediately. Recognize that what we're saying here is happening. Okay, now let's get back to the evil part. That they get the benefit of this world as well. Why? In Luke 6:35, love your enemies, do good to them, lend them without expecting to be repaid. Lend without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. He is kind to them. And you sitting there going, oh, how can you be kind to these people? That is God's nature. Compassion, mercy. It doesn't mean that he doesn't get angry. We've already gone over that. Kind, compassionate, merciful, trying to get their hearts to be humbled and melt and be broken of spirit to realize they need someone helping them. And then verse 36, you must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. Meaning, compassion to those people who hate you. Turn the other cheek. You should have read all that stuff. And it's very hard for us, especially Americans who have everything. It's very hard for us to do that. Try it once and be amazed about how you feel when you do that. Even if they spit in your face afterwards, you are going to feel good. He says he blesses you for that. All right, now let's get back to the giving stuff, being the light of the world and showing people how to give and how to be compassionate and merciful without a parade saying that you did it. So we read the Matthew 5:13 through 16, the salt and the light. Let's do Matthew 6, 1 and 4. Okay, Matthew 6, 1 and 4. Watch out, don't do your good deeds publicly to be admired by others, for you will lose the reward from your Father in heaven. Verse 4, give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you. Okay, so if you could do things in private, do it in private. Don't tell anybody. But if you're caught out in public and somebody needs something, and you have the resources to take care of it, then do it. Because there's a reason God's put it there in public. Don't sit there and say, I'm going to give all the blankets to these poor people here. They're shivering and cold. You know, this is what I do. Don't do that. That's not what he's talking about. Okay? So, that's your day 275. I'll see you tomorrow.